So we are the group 2 presenters and we will discuss about the activity 2, the functions of different engine safety interlocks. So we have our learning objective for this topic. We are able to identify the different engine interlocks and the difference between each component. So we are differenting or comparing different interlocks. In definition, so what is marine interlocks? So marine interlocks is interlocks that are providing the engine can be started or reversed only, but when a certain conditions have been fulfilled, when there is a remote control of engines, and it is essential or important to have interlocks because this reduces the possibility of engine damage and any hazards to operating personnel. So, in addition, safety interlocks, switches are used for safety interlocks devices that can prevent machine operation or start up in an unsafe situation. So, its purpose is to avoid any emergency, such as when a door or guard is open. So, interlock devices with locking functions can also prevent door or guards from being opened while the machine is in operation.
Turning gear interlock. So in this my topic, this device prevents the engine from being started if the turning gear is engaged. So simple as that. It means that the turning gear interlock is also another important. Why? Because it is another important thing that prevents the admission of the starting air to the engine cylinders when the turning gear is going to engage. So thus, the interlock is also necessary to prevent such as an accidents. Why? Because the turning gear is also used to turn the engine 1 or 2 revolutions prior to starting. So it means that turning gear interlock is also another important device that restrict the admission of starting air to the engine cylinders when the turning gear is engaged. So if the starting air is allowed with the turning gear engaged, so therefore the turning gear along with the motor will fly off, puncturing the bulkhead. Next is the running direction interlock. So running direction interlock is this prevents the fuel from being supplied if the running direction of the engine does not match the telegraph. So running direction interlock is an also essential trait that prevents the injection of fuel to the engine when the telegraph doesn't synchronize. Why? Because with the running direction of the engine, because it is an important application in the crash such as maneuvering when the starting air is used to apply the brakes on the engine by reversing the operation. So also the admission of fuel to the engine is if the running direction of the engine does not match like the kauban sa telegraph lever. So for me, it is fitted at the forward end of the fuel pump.
So next is the starting air distributor in the end position. So the starting air distributor in the end position prevents starting from taking place if the shifting of the distributor has not been completed. So the starting air is inserted through a valve called starting air valve. So the opening and closing of this valve is controlled using pilot air supplied to them by the starting air distributor. So the starting air distributor is the one which ensures that the pilot air is supplied to the cylinder as per the proper firing order.
Pressure. So lubrication plays a key role in the life expectancy of an engine. So without oil, an engine would succumb to overheating and seizing very quickly. So lubricant helps mitigate this problem, and if properly monitored and maintained can extend the life of the engine. So lubrication in an internal combustion engine begins in the sump, commonly referred to as the oil pan. From here, the oil is pulled through strainer by the oil pump, removing large the mass of the fluid. The oil then goes through the oil filter. So it is important to note that not all filters perform the same. So piston cooling pressure. So piston cooling pressure is monitored by a pressure switch The output signal from the pressure switch to the engine control unit can only have two distinct positions, on and off. The switch is supplied with current from the engine control unit. A preset pressure limit to determine when it switches on. The switch is opens if the pressure exceeds this value. The idle switch can be closed with the fault code being formed. So jacket cooling, the enclosed space surroundings the cylinder block of an internal combustion engine and containing the cooling liquid. So next, the auxiliary blowers. So auxiliary blowers are part of ship engines, and usually they are assembled in pairs. So both auxiliary blowers start operation before starting the ship engine and provide adequate pressure of flushing air for a safe startup of ship engine. The air side cannot be isolated as the auxiliary blower takes its suction via the air filter. So thus, air isolation of the turbocharger relies on the non-return valve fitted at the inlet to the scavenge air manifold.
So next is the air spring pressure interlock. So in case of the present generation of engines using exhaust valve shut by air springs, so the air spring pressure must always be maintained, or else the exhaust valve may not close. So if the exhaust valves are operated by air spring pressure, there should be a sufficient air pressure before the engine can be started, or otherwise exhaust valve may not close while running.
So, safety interlocks prevent access to powered machinery and stop inadvertent startups while personnel are inside the dangerous area. So, this ensures safety. They do this by forcing operators to isolate the power before anyone gains the access. There are interlocks installed so that the engine can only be started or reversed once specific requirements have been met. Interlocks are necessary when engines are controlled remotely. So by doing this, the chance of engine damage and any risk to the operating staff are decreased or mitigate or avoid. This ensures safety to the machinery and to the personnel. To avoid ambiguity or misinterpretation of a complex switching scheme, it is like something seatbelt warning and compulsion to wear seatbelt to start a car. There are various interlocks throughout the ship for engines, hydraulic machines, etc. whenever there's a safety concern. So the main purpose or main goal of this, or its objective, is for the safety.